to the post-presidential debate post-show. We are going to discuss all things that happened in tonight's... No, just kidding. Welcome to the Fantasy Boardroom, everybody. Sorry, we've got a little bit later start tonight. Hopefully some of you guys are still awake joining us, but the season has actually started. No more draft conversation, no more looking for sleepers, no more deciding who's the best pick in each round, although all that stuff's fun. I love drafting, and I know you do too. Now we're ready to start judging these selections, start discussing where did we go wrong? What did we get right? Where are we going from here? What is up, Rob? Welcome, man. Glad we have somebody in the building. So, yeah, we had a very interesting week one. We had some really good games, but I'd say as a whole, probably kind of mid, if we're being truly honest. I mean, amazing just because it was the first football Sunday that we've had in months. But, man, we were left wanting, especially in the fantasy sense. I mean, a lot of our high picks really underwhelmed, to say the least. So what we're going to do tonight, with week one in the books, overreaction and panic is just completely out in full force. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to calm down, and we're not going to panic over our first round pick, our second round pick absolutely shitting the bed for us in week one. Maybe we ended up with a loss to start the year, and we're already just pissed. Many of us are. I'm in the same boat in a couple leagues. I have some regrets, but most of the guys we're going to talk about tonight, no. So let's dive in. The panic meter. Now, highly drafted quarterbacks. So Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, great, fantastic. Hurts and Mahomes, they clocked in at QB 10, QB 12, respectively. Not what you want, but you can live with at least. You know every week's not going to be a QB1 week. Those are fine. But outside of those guys, not really loving what we saw. We love you too, Pompano. Welcome, brother. So we had Burrow at QB 25, Dak outside the top 15. Panic meter, though, for all these guys, virtually zero. Actually, I take that back about Burrow because I just saw something about his hand like 15 minutes ago. So hopefully his hand's okay in recovery from last year. I'm not really going to worry about it yet, though. Bengals typically start slow. Burrow typically starts slow. Really no real strong reason to panic other than they did look really bad. No T. Higgins, though. Chase obviously wasn't there for camp. The Patriots have an under-respected defense. So it's not crazy, but it's not great. I mean, if there's any of that group, that's maybe the one I'm a little bit concerned. But Dak, he had a tough road matchup in Cleveland. I mean, that's a really good defense. That's a tough place to go play, especially first game of the year. I'm not worried about him. And honestly, with the Bengals, as Chase continues to reintegrate into the team and his T does come back to health, and they get past their first 2 week swoon that I swear happens every year, especially since we've been in the Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor era, it will be fine. I think things will improve. I don't think it's going to be a top 5 QB, but I never did. But it should still be in QB1 territory. So do not worry about your highly drafted quarterbacks. A lot of other quarterbacks had great days, but you likely didn't spend significant draft capital on them. So we're not really going to get into those mid-round guys, late-round guys. I mean, if you drafted Jaden Daniels, fantastic. You're thrilled. If you drafted Kyler Murray in the mid-rounds, probably we're hoping for a bit more. But in Buffalo, again, it's fine. Don't worry about any of these guys. Do not overreact yet. We go through 2 weeks of nonsense. We can start having some conversations. On the wide receiver side, now this was probably even more frustrating for many. So really only a couple of the first-round receivers that actually paid off for real, which would be Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown. But Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 15. Jamar Chase, 26. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 66. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 21. They all left you wanting. And some of the other early drafted guys, Drake London, Marvin Harrison Jr., Puka Nacua. Puka got hurt. He was 4 for 40, I think, at the time of his exit. 441, something like that. He was on his way to a decent day, probably, but now he's on IR. You're going to miss him for 4 weeks, so you're still not very thrilled with the pick. And there is reason to panic about Puka because, one, we don't know for sure when he'll be back. And two, we saw what the Matthew Stafford Cooper Cup connection looks like again. And for those that you were watching me today, you probably saw last week's episode, me screaming that Cup was a tremendous pick in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round on the various platform. Were you able to get him in those rounds, whether it was ESPN or Yahoo or Sleeper? So, but yeah, most of this former group's going to be fine. Jefferson, even though he's wide receiver 15, we saw that he had a nice connection with Darnold. That'll only continue to grow. How they do against San Francisco, we'll see. I mean, he'll probably put in a similar day, mid-range wide receiver 2, but over the course of the year, he'll still be tremendous. Jamar Chase, again, just needs to get the reps back in. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, the Rams are bracketing the hell out of him, and maybe other teams employ that strategy, but still very much not a guy I'm concerned about. CeeDee Lamb, again, tough matchup for Dallas on the road in Cleveland against a top defense. Lamb will be fine. And also, like Chase, missed most of camp, so just needs to get the reps back in. Honestly, I thought he had a very good day, all things considered. Now, some of these other guys, Drake London, I was quite high on him, so I'm going to feel the sting of this if this doesn't work out. But and I know TJ Watt was a terror, and that defensive line in Pittsburgh just completely overwhelmed Atlanta. But Kirk couldn't move. Looked like he struggled planning to throw at times. I'm frankly a bit worried about the skill positions in Atlanta. I was really high on them. Obviously, like many, with them finally having a real quarterback in town, well, that may not matter if the guy can throw but can't really move at all, and they can't give him time to get the ball anywhere if he can't move. So that's going to be something to watch. I would say panic meter for Drake London is probably, honestly, already at a 5 for me. I'm like really worried after that. And Marvin Harrison, though, not really. I mean, he could have been, if Kyler had simply seen him, would have scored a very long touchdown. He was wide open. So that will come together as well. So I don't think there's really any need to panic here. I think all these guys are going to rebound for the most part, London being the true concern. But if week 2 goes poorly for any of these guys, I'm still not going to panic, except for London. And I'm going to suggest that you start to go out and buy low, especially if any of the owners of these players have their teams in an 0-2 situation, feel the need to make a quick change. So let's see how that goes. But yeah, not worried about any of these guys so much. Panic meter at 0 for all of them, except for Drake London and Puka. But again, injury, so that's kind of a different scenario. Not really fully on topic. Pompano, do I think Jaden Reed has solidified himself as wide receiver 1 in Green Bay, or still a wide receiver 1A? I would say 1A. I don't think he's established himself as the full-on lead dog, and I don't know that any of these guys really will, if I'm being frank. I think it's going to rotate on a weekly basis, but I do think the 2 guys most likely to lead this receiving core on a consistent basis, the 2 names that you'll see at the top more often than not, or more often than the other guys over the course of the year, will be Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. I do think those are definitely the 2 guys that Love is looking for the most. Dubs and Wicks, who knows? And frankly, with Love set to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks, and Malik Willis, who can't throw back there, I don't know that I'm really worrying myself too much about the wide receivers in Green Bay over the next few weeks anyways. If Jordan Love's not under center, rather, specifically if Malik Willis is, I am not starting any of them, and happy to not do so. So we'll see how everything looks when Jordan Love comes back, but I would say Reed is 1A. I think him and Watson are 1A, 1B on any given day. So we've discussed quarterbacks, we've discussed wide receivers. Now we move on to the highly drafted running backs. And unfortunately, the top of the heap at this position, much like the others, very underwhelming. Amongst the early round RBs, we have Barkley and Achane are really the only guys who came through. Obviously, Barkley with this tremendous Friday night performance in Brazil, hat trick of touchdowns. And HN looked explosive, high reception count. He was very good. So they very much satisfied you. Jahmyr Gibbs was the only other one that you could, I guess, live with the performance. He was the only one that even sniffed RB1 territory. He was, half a point out of finishing at RB12. Or actually, I take that back. It was probably out of RB13 at this point because this was before Monday Night Football. So Jordan Mason certainly catapulted him. But Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. Sensing a theme here, all disappointing, like, to say the least. And a lot of these guys even scored touchdowns and still only turned in, at best, a, okay-ish day, like Pacheco. If you drafted any of these guys, almost all of them requiring a pick in the first 2 rounds, you're probably not thrilled about that. With that said, I have panic meter full on at 0 for Jonathan Taylor, Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Etienne. None face real competition for their work and are going to have plenty of opportunity to rack up the fantasy points. They'll be fine. Bijan Robinson, much like Drake London, really the only reason he's a concern is just because of how poor that offense looked as a whole. You got a lot of usage, but still kind of a midday. That could turn around quickly, though. I'm still hopeful for the Falcons, but man, I'm just not feeling strong about it at this time. That's all. Kyron really didn't look great. I guess the one encouraging thing for you if you did draft Kyron is Blake Corum got 0 snaps. I don't think that continues, frankly. I'm not taking the L on fading Kyron just yet. Not at all, because he didn't play especially well. Nor did Henry. Nor was Henry's usage good after that first drive. So some of these early backs, frankly, if we're talking Kyron, Henry, panic meter is already at a 4. We'll say 4. Bijan at a 2. We'll see. I mean, these guys really might continue to disappoint. I'm concerned. And Jacobs, he should be viable again once Jordan Love returns. But again, with Malik Willis, I would keep expectations low. So for the next 4 to 6 weeks with Malik Willis under center, my panic meter on Josh Jacobs is a simple 5-6. I'm really tempering expectations for all of these guys for the foreseeable future. Very worried, very worried. So actually kind of the antithesis of the episode. I'm telling you not to panic, but the running back group is the one group where I'm saying, except for Pacheco, Taylor, and Etienne, yeah, I'm panicking. And Christian McCaffrey, Achilles tendonitis. Ugh. Not exactly what you want to hear to start the year from a 28-year-old running back. So, panic meter on CMC is probably already at a 4, considering he missed the first game of the year. It's not looking pretty. Nino, what's up, dog? Traded away Neighbors for DJ Moore. Any thoughts? I am all for it, actually. I love this trade, especially in redraft. So, Neighbors outperformed DJ Moore on Sunday. But I think the offense for Chicago looked exceptionally bad in Caleb's first start. And I do think Caleb Williams and the Chicago offense will turn things around. I really do. I don't think we're going to see him play that poorly again. Kid's first NFL start. Yeah, I'm just not. That's not something I'm worried about. So DJ Moore, I think that will improve as Caleb improves. Again, the next week or 2 still might be slow, but Neighbors, well, we all watched Daniel Jones, or actually, I hope very few of us watched Daniel Jones, and most of us only saw the highlights or lowlights of how Mr. Jones played, and that doesn't exactly exude you with optimism for Neighbors' prospects the rest of the season. So I would keep myself tied to the wide receiver 1 that has a good quarterback, or should be good quarterback, rather, versus a guy we know is ass. So yeah, I'm more than comfortable with it. In Dynasty, different story. It's you probably got to go Neighbors, but yeah, here in redraft for 2024, I'm taking DJ Moore over. I was drafting him over Neighbors, so I am very happy with this trade. If I am you, Nino, you should see the fruits of this trade within a few weeks. Probably not immediately, but quickly. And we have our final position group. Again, one that was very disappointing amongst the highly drafted members. I mean, of the top group of tight ends, really only Kyle Pitts left you satisfied with the week. Me, as a longtime Kyle Pitts truther, yeah! That's what I'm talking about. Kyle Pitts touchdown. Woo! You know how long I've been waiting for that. Oh my God. Kyle Pitts touchdowns, just boom. Otherwise, we have Travis Kelce, we have Sam Laporta, Mark Andrews, Trey McBride, Evan Ingram, Jake Ferguson. Not looking so pretty. Kelce and Andrews were especially disappointing. Well, at least Laporta and McBride finished in the top 10. I believe Laporta was 8, McBride was 10. Although it is important to note that last year, this top group of tight ends, or at least all the ones that finished near the top, all had a pretty poor week one as well. Obviously, there's no real concerns with Kelce. They're just saving a bit. The Chiefs look like an absolute machine, so Kelce will be just fine. He even looked fine. He just wasn't getting the action. Laporta and McBride both had enough work that you're not going to freak out just yet. Panic meter still at 0 for them. Enough targets that you know they're going to be involved and just need to get some touchdowns. And they should come. And Andrews, you might be surprised by this one, given the performance of Isaiah Likely, but panic meter also has 0 all the way down. And actually, people are freaking out about Andrews and some of these other guys. I think you might need to wait a week or two to potentially buy low if we have another poor performance from him. But Andrews, you can probably go out and get right now, especially in Dynasty, and I would encourage you strongly to do so. So buy low from those that are panicking. I mean, Andrews was doubled against Kansas City more than any other game in his entire career, and if Likely keeps up play like he played on Thursday, the teams aren't going to be able to afford to do that. I mean, other teams might try to employ that strategy, right? But if Likely can cook them like that, there's just no way they can keep it up. Andrews is still the big dog in Baltimore. Not even worried about that. Evan Ingram, he's probably the hardest one to project amongst this group because we have Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Travis Etienne. It's, how does this pecking order continue to play out? It didn't play out very well for Ingram on Sunday, whereas I would have expected him to get more work. So that will be one to monitor. Panic meter still low. 1, 2, maybe. But, I mean, because who are you trading him for? But one to keep an eye on for sure. I think his talent is just too good, especially against, is Gabe Davis really going to be a preferred option over him over the course of a season? Hell no. We'll see how Brian Thomas continues to go, but he looked good on Sunday. Christian Kirk, he's kind of a hot and cold player. Generally good, but not always necessarily going to be commanding over Ingram. Not a chance. And there will be a lot of matchup dependent situations that dictate where the ball goes. So I think Ingram will be fine, even though he's the hardest, I think, to project. And Jake Ferguson, he unfortunately got hurt. In my notes when I was working on the show sheet, we were awaiting the severity, but I do believe MCL injury. I don't know if they projected a timetable. I want to say it was about 4 weeks. So what we are going to do is just verify this in real time because we have the ability here in real time. That is what's so great about the technology age. It's not season ending, means he'll miss time. And they haven't really. So he's going to miss some time. Yeah, so I guess panic is the wrong word when it comes to Ferguson. Obviously, you're going to have to find a replacement, but don't drop Ferguson. When he comes back, I still think he will be in that top group of tight ends as well. So do not worry about it. Season in the house. What is up, brother? Happy to see you here, although you're showing up near the end. Because I'm not going to go through waivers and things like that, at least not this week. I probably won't most weeks just because you have the boys doing that last night. I'm not going to sit here and repeat what's going on in the show. I'm still kind of working on the format, shifting to Tuesdays because it's a little too early to be going too deep into props. I don't want to do just a review show all the time. That's going to get kind of tired. So it's actually probably going to be an evolving format week to week. Like, obviously, after week 1, we have a chance to quickly react to especially some of these highly drafted. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys in the first 3 rounds, or in the case tight ends, just, highly drafted amongst the group. Shit the bed for you. And we got to know, hey, did we just draft like, ESPN public leaguers, or did we, or are we just ahead of the curve? And I think for most of these guys, and most of us, we are ahead of the curve. These players are good players. Most of them, apart from like the rookie categories, they've consistently performed year over year. So we know these guys. We know that there's talent. We know that these situations are fluid, especially at the beginning of the year. Defenses are a little bit ahead of the offenses typically to start the year. So the fantasy points will come. Some of these strange breakouts will. Well, those never really see some fantasy, and that's part of what makes it fun. But your research and your preparation is not for nothing. I guess that's the main point I'm trying to drive home tonight with saying not to panic on most of these guys, because 1 week is an incredibly limited sample size, and we know how any given week can go by itself. And especially when we're talking about the players of the caliber that we are. So, again, and I guess the other point beyond trying to confirm for you that all of your work to get to this point has not been in vain. Your picks, I still think most of these are good picks, is to not let these guys go too early. Don't drop, like, for instance, I do say Kyrie drafters should panic just a little bit. So let's extrapolate that a little bit. If you were like me and you ended up with a lot of Blake Corum because of that, don't drop him yet, even though he had 0 snaps. That's, take the information or the opinions from that top group and take it down to the rest. I mean, for the Cincinnati receiving group, even with Chase, being rusty as all hell, no Higgins, Jermaine Burton, nothing. Did he even play? I don't think so. Andre Osivas, very limited. So in terms of his production, so you don't really need to worry about those guys being sleepers for the rest of the year quite so much, when they probably are as favorable of a situation as they're going to get. So don't let these studs go too early because you're freaked out about a bad week 1. Know that you made a good pick in all likelihood, and these guys will pay off for you over the coming weeks. Will, what is up, brother? Is this a good trade? Malik Neighbors and Jahmyr Gibbs for Rashee Rice, Devontae Adams, and Austin Eckler. You'd be getting Gibbs and Neighbors. You're good on receivers. I mean, the Gibbs upgrade over Eckler, I think, is pretty massive. But Rice and Devontae to bring in Neighbors, man. Will, who is your other running back besides Eckler? What's your running back situation outside of this? How badly do you need Gibbs? Because I'm not sure I want Neighbors over Rice for sure, and I'm not sure I want him over Adams, frankly, either. So you'd be taking quite the hit, although that is a big running back upgrade, in my opinion. So yeah, let me know what your... I'm leaning towards no on this only because, unless this is Dynasty, that's different. This is Dynasty, smash, but there's no way that is. So if this is, redraft, let me know what your Jacob. So Josh Jacobs, I assume, Williams, Chase Brown. Javonte Williams, let's see, Josh. Shit. Because of Josh Jacobs, he's about to hit a little bit of a wall, I believe, with Jordan Love going to be out for a few weeks. Javonte Williams did not do anything. And Chase Brown is probably one of my immediate regrets from the draft. So, because I took him over Moss. So, I would say make that trade then. Yeah, I think you need the running back help if you're, let's see, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Hopkins, Tyler Lockett. So you would have Neighbors, or so you would end up with Neighbors, Chase, Waddle. Yeah, I would make the trade then. I would make the trade. Value of Jordan Mason in Dynasty. Well, that is a tricky one because I've been thinking about that a lot today, as a matter of fact, Kyle. That has been on the brain because I'm a 49er fan, so I had a lot of Mason stacked, not a lot of McCaffrey, so I might have a sell opportunity here. And I've been trying to figure out what am I willing to sell him for. And it's really hard to say because on one hand, we have Christian McCaffrey, 28 years old, Achilles tendonitis. You hear 28 years old, you hear Achilles, you're in Dynasty, you're thinking, big trouble. I'm concerned about it. That said, just got a new contract from the 49ers in the offseason. Mason's expires after this year. But if McCaffrey is legitimately hurt and this is real time, or this becomes a long-term problem, we've seen what Mason can do in this offense and what they did against a good defense. Ooh. It's one of these things where I'd probably need more to sell him than I would be willing to give to buy him, if that makes sense. I guess on both sides of the fence in thinking that way, but I don't think I would give a first for Jordan Mason, but I don't think I would accept less than that to give him up. I'd probably be willing to give a mid to high second if I was in possession of one to obtain him if I'm a competing team in Dynasty. But yeah, if I have him and somebody's trying to buy him from me, yeah, that conversation starts with the 2025 first. Or a second and a decent player. I think the upside is situational upside is just so incredibly high that if somebody's really entertaining trying to take him off your hands, you really got to try and hold the line. Because it's tempting. I mean, we saw what he just did against the Jets in a primetime matchup. I mean, everybody saw it. So, and this could potentially be the time to strike while the iron's hot. Yeah, expensive. I agree, but I think he has to be expensive. Like, so if you're trying to get him from somebody, I would just start with the second. And if they reject the second, I might throw in another like depth type player, maybe a low flex worthy type, just something else to keep him on the bench. They still have a player, so to speak. Because anybody who has Jordan Mason likely wasn't planning on relying on him. So in a sense, he's expendable. Maybe just as a, backup option. So just throw in a potential backup player. But I think a second is not too expensive, and I think is fair. Definitely, I wouldn't give up the first. I just wouldn't take less than a first if I was the seller. That's all. Good question, though. And I'm not even 100% sure I'm right about that opinion. Well, like I said, I've been pondering it today, and I haven't really come to a final thought, but that's where I'm at right now. Are you looking to buy him or sell him, Kyle, just out of curiosity? Other than that, man, yeah, I haven't gotten into props yet. Too early. Those will come. I think that's it. So I really hope that you guys just remember it's only week 1. Don't need to freak out. Don't need to go crazy. Don't need to max out anybody on waivers due to anything that happened with any of your players. If you want to put in a strong waiver claim to, pick up a guy like Jordan Mason, yes, go ahead and do so. But don't do so because of an overreaction to anybody currently on your bench. Yeah, I feel you. Okay, fair enough. Well, then that's the way I would treat it, man. And hopefully you're able to get both. Hopefully you're able to buy him for the right price and sell him and collect a nice extra first. I think everybody would be happy with that. At least you and I would be happy with that. So good luck to you guys here in your week 2 matchups. We'll see if I'm able to make it on with the boys on Friday. You never really know. Most Fridays I'm trying. Just most Fridays it isn't able to happen. Also, please, guys, give your thoughts to If you know anybody in Southern California, specifically in Orange County or Riverside County, there's a raging fire probably about 4 miles from my place right now, or at least that's where it originated. It's been going away from my residence, thankfully. Last night was something else. There really is something harrowing about standing out in the middle of the night, looking off into the horizon, and just seeing that line of flames going across the ridge line, just right outside your front door. Nothing. I don't want to say it was like incredibly scary, but like there's nothing that really quite prepares you for that. In a sense, you're just, man, a fire is something to truly be respected. Let me tell you, this stuff is no joke. So if you do have any friends, family out there, please pray for them. If you're one of those people, I'm praying for you. Stay safe out there. As Kyle said, yes, please stay safe. Crazy world out there. Respect each other, love each other. And final thoughts. Thank you all so very much for your time. Your time is the one thing you cannot buy, the one thing you cannot replace. It is the most valuable thing that we have. And I very much appreciate you for spending some of it with me with Get Right. So, all you beautiful, beautiful people, good luck this week. This meeting of the Fantasy Boardroom is adjourned.
Wanted to write fantasy is the play. Marking nothing, but I tune every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go